So hello, everybody. It is me, Demetra K, and I am sitting here with Donovan, the recovering Democrat Sadiq, and it is the Demetra K podcast where we promote Black love, knowledge, and understanding of all things that go on in the Black community to make us an even better people, with the emphasis on even. And so today we are going to be talking about that of your president, not ours. Well, I guess it technically is, right? Mr. Joe Biden, and a tweet that he sent out the other day in regards to what he wants to do for Ukrainian, I guess, refugees at this point, right? And so before we get into it, Donovan, what say you?
All right, you guys, good morning. Good morning. If you guys are in traffic, sorry for you. Gas prices continue to go up. They have no answer to what these corporations are gouging the people. And that's what they're saying. A lot of this stuff is because these major corporations are taking advantage of the fact that this is a crappy administration and the president cannot control gas prices. That is not in his wheel. But yeah, great topic we're going to talk about today. So you guys, please like, share, and subscribe. You can also catch us on all of the podcast formats, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, and so on, so forth. And if you guys are listening and you got a Cash App, PayPal,
Venmo.
Bitmo, all that stuff. Venmo, please, if you feel so kind, go ahead and donate. So let's get into this because this is a very important thing, especially when it deals again with not just Black people, but everybody in general, where our tax dollars are going.
Absolutely. All right. So the tweet that I was telling y'all about the other day by that of President Biden, it says, "We will make sure Ukraine has weapons to defend against the invading Russian force. We will send money and food and aid to save Ukrainian lives. We will welcome Ukrainian refugees with open arms." Okay.
He's not sending them back on planes?
Huh?
He's not sending them back on planes?
No, he said Ukrainians, not Haitians. Okay.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So as you guys may or may not know, maybe I'm as a Freudian slip of the tongue, but Russia has invaded Ukraine and they are basically devastating the country of Ukraine. All right. With that being said, it is said that about 3 million people have fled. Ukrainians have fled Ukraine up to this point. And so they're looking for various places to go, Poland, and a whole bunch of other places that are surrounding them. And I don't know if you guys saw the interview. Well, it wasn't an interview. I guess it was some sort of a press conference with Poland's president, and Kamala was there, and she was asked about will basically the United States be accepting refugees, and she kind of looked at him, was like, I don't know. What do you think? So she didn't know how to answer it. So I guess this is
again, she flubs a simple question again.
So this is Joe Biden's way, I guess, of saying yes, and we will welcome them with open arms. I guess he's probably trying to clean it up because Kamala did, in fact, fumble the question, and it was really embarrassing. But it's not unusual for Kamala to go to different countries' press conferences with other leaders and not really know how to answer the question. All right. And so, again, the Ukrainian people are looking for places to go, and it is not unusual for the United States to accept refugees. Recently, we saw that of Afghans come over here on planes, and they were put up and given money and just completely taken care of, right? Now, I guess you're saying, well, from a humanitarian standpoint, that sounds really good, right? Well, it doesn't sound really good when you live in a country where there's so much despair going on already. And so that country happens to be the United States, right? So let's just take the refugee situation with the Ukrainian people, right? Well, you have refugees here, maybe not refugees, but let's call them the unhoused population, aka homeless people. So let me give y'all some statistics here. So it says that the average life expectancy of a homeless person is about 50 years. So they live about 50 years old if they're on the streets. 61% of homeless persons are men and boys. 20% of homeless persons are kids. 42% of street children identify as LGBT. It says New York has 1/5 of all U.S. sheltered homeless. It says the homeless problem is on a downward trend, is what they're saying. I don't know how true it is, especially with the economy going the way it is. Now, this was from last year, just to be clear. And so lastly, it says here about 40% of all homeless people are Black people. So about 4 out of 10 people that are homeless are Black. So that is disproportionately more than anybody else, being that we make up about 13-14% of the population, whatever statistic you happen to believe.
Yeah, it's kind of like the prison population. We're 70% of the prison population, but look at how small of a number we are within the country. So it's alarming.
Right. And so when you hear and see, President of the United States talking about what they will do for another country, and not to mention that they've sent billions of dollars over there already, but they're telling you at the same time, in the same vein, out the same mouth, that you as Americans are going to have to brace because things might get hard, due to the war over there, because they're putting sanctions on Russia and Putin and all of that. And so things may get tough here. Basically, you're going to pay more gas prices, food prices, and whatever else may go up, right?
More rent. It's getting crazy.
But yet they're telling you, that you need to brace for hard times, but yet they're going to go make things easier for people that do not live here. So I was always taught that you should take care of home first. Now, you guys also got to remember, this money is not just materializing per se out of thin air. It is taxpayers' money, right? So when you pay taxes, that money is going to help other people that do not live here, not yet anyway. So with the other party says, well, we will welcome Ukrainian refugees with open arms. So what you're saying is you're going to have them come over here. And when you welcome them, are you going to put them on the street with the rest of the homeless population in America? Or are you going to house them, give them food, give them money, and a whole bunch of other things that you should be giving to people who live over here? And so this subject, when I saw this tweet, it really angered me. For one, is because there's a lot of people who will continue to defend the Biden administration. Now, admittedly, other administrations have done it, but we've seen this administration do it quite a bit within a year plus time that they've been in the White House. They've helped so many other people. And to the point that Donovan made a minute ago, Haitian people, when they converged onto, the borders or whatever, or into America from the Mexican border and all of that, they most immediately, expeditiously sent them all back. And you haven't heard one peep else about Haitian people. They could not wait. In fact, they said, we don't have the resources to take care of them. And so they sent them back. But yet, Black people are the reasons that the Democrats are in office, but they do nothing for Black people here and nothing for Black people abroad. So we're going to have that discussion and then some other stuff. So Donovan, what say you?
And you bring up a good point when you talked about these Haitian refugees who are fleeing a failed state. Their president had probably, because of a coup helped by the CIA and all other aspects, killed their president. So these people are legitimately coming here for asylum politically and humanitarianly. But we're going to fly over 300,000 Afghans into the United States. Now, you guys got to remember, and I'm not saying this to be derogatory about people who are from Afghanistan. I was over there myself. But we're flying people into this country who weren't loyal to their country. These are people that helped us. So by definition, those people could not stay there because their own people would kill them because they're geared as traitors. These are the type of people we want in the United States. If they can't be loyal to their own country, how much loyalty are they going to have when they get here? Right. And a lot of people, don't think about that. But it just seems to me that when it's melanated, people that are melanated that come into this country, they get all of the hassle and all of the business. And here's the funny thing. It's the Democratic administrations that keep melanated people out of the country. How many of you guys remember, if you're old enough, during the Clinton administration, because Clinton was the first black president and everybody was loving Clinton, right? He was getting rid of Haitians and Cubans and sending them back. They couldn't even jump, on the land. And some of them that were on the land, he sent them back anyway. I don't remember any Republicans doing that. So it's just amazing to me how when it comes to Black issues, we are failing. And I've said this on my podcast and on my shows and in different venues. Why is it that people do not want to accept the fact of what is? Now, I know you guys are watching all these DC Marvel movies and stuff, and you're binge watching and you're going into escapism like they did in the Great Depression, watching movies and stuff. And that's great. I'm a comic book collector myself. Infinite Earths. There's like, depending on what Infinite Earth is, the outcome is different, right? What if? It's different. But the fact is, we're on this infinite Earth. And what they're doing to us is reality. And as a Black people, I'm sorry, you guys, we are failing. 70% of Black people are failing. If we're such a small bit of a population in the United States, but we make up the biggest group in the prisons, we are almost more than half of the homeless people. By my definition, that's a failing group. So, we really got to wake up and see that this Democratic people party that's for the people, I have yet to see it in my lifetime where these people are showing they are for the people. I go back and I think about what LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, said. I'm going to sign this civil rights legislation, and it's going to make those niggers vote Democrat for the next 500 years. And he was never so right.
So absolutely. So it should also be said too that Putin has banned Biden, Clinton, all the Clintons, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, and a couple other people, like 13 people, from coming into Russia or doing anything in Russia. And if they have businesses or money or any assets over there, they have been frozen. Now, we don't know if they have them over there. Now, I'm sure they do to some degree. And so I guess it's in retaliation from Putin to them for being sanctioned, right? So it's going to get more interesting, if you will. But yeah, so you have the president here talking about all the things that he wants to do for other people, but it's like it's madness. Do you guys know that in other countries, they would be turning the F up if their leaders, so-called leaders, did that to them? You literally have people starving in the streets. And regardless of how you feel about homeless people, because somebody might say, oh, well, they're homeless people, they just lazy and all of that. There's a whole bunch of reasons that people are homeless. And so I don't think we should judge. But the fact that we do have homeless people and the United States continuously talk about humanitarian efforts, is like, well, why are you so more concerned about being a humanitarian with other people than you're not that way with your own people, right? And so the other thing is, the United States really don't have a leg to stand on as far as talk about humanitarian, because they've done so many evil things to people around the world. They are huge. And when I say they, I'm talking about American leaders, war criminals that they will not answer for the things that they've done. And so it's like and I think it was Putin that said it. North Korea, a lot of other leaders have said this about our people over here. Our leaders, like, y'all are the last people to tell somebody that they're doing this and that against their people. Let's take Muammar Gaddafi, for example. They got American people to think, oh, he's such a horrible person. He's doing this and that to their people, his people. And that's why we need to go take him out. Saddam and everybody else. But they never, ever answered to the things that they've done to people here and abroad. And so this is why I kind of, and don't take me wrong, because I know somebody's going to get me wrong when I say this.
Of course.
I love the fact that Russia has taken the stand that it has taken with America, because it's like, oh, you thought you was the big bad wolf, huh? Well, if you're froggy, leap. If you're froggy, leap. Because y'all been talking about everybody else doing stuff, and now y'all want to, and if I'm Putin, now you want to say I'm a horrible person, but y'all never have to answer this shit you do. So now I want to see what you guys are going to do about me.
Right, exactly. When the other big bully on the block steps up, wow, it's kind of amazing how we pause at what we're going to do. And you brought up a good point in regards to what Russia said. But let's not forget the other bully on the block, China. China constantly tells the United States, you better stop talking about our human rights violations, because we know in China they are executing Muslims and all kinds of stuff that's going on in China, right? We are not on this platform, we're not saying that's right at all. But how can you go and talk about human rights violations against China and other countries, and yet you could take those same violations that you do toward Black people in the United States? Did we not just see George Floyd get choked out and murdered on live TV? Breonna Taylor and all these other things. And you know what the sad thing is? The United States government never has an answer to when those diplomats bring up those questions when they are in negotiating and meetings about human rights violations. They never bring that up. The China never says that they're not doing it. Their concentration camps and stuff like that. They go, yeah, we got these are political prisoners. This is what we got. This is what we do. We're not going to stop. We are going to purge, and we're going to do our tribal thing, whatever they're doing over there. But when that same question goes back to the United States, they have no answer. How do you say they're literally watching Black people being shot down in the streets, murdered and brutalized by police, and the United States government, be it Republican or Democrat, have no clear-cut answer to why that is going on?
Right. And the other thing, too, is I think people need to ask themselves, does Russia have nuclear weapons? Does the United States have nuclear weapons?
Yep.
And you know who got together with Russia to decide to help talk Ukraine out of having their nuclear weapons? It was the U.S. and Russia.
Right.
They both got together to do that in 1994. Clinton had a summit, and Clinton was, successful in helping Russia talk Ukraine out of their nuclear weapons. And so here they are all these years later. But I don't know if you guys heard Biden say, because he was there in the White House too. I mean, as a senator. But have you heard anybody say, well, the United States at the summit, the NATO summit or whatever it was, talked Ukraine out of their nuclear weapons along with Russia. So they all three got together, and the United States and Russia were complicit in having them get rid of their nuclear weapons. So here they are, not being able to sustain an attack from Russia, and they probably wouldn't be able to anyway because they're a lot smaller, but they have nothing of any significance to protect themselves but United States. So maybe, I don't know, that's why the United States is maybe feeling a little bit of guilt, but it's like, well, you guys kind of helped Ukraine get in that situation in the first place. But back to my point about the United States being a bully and not wanting to own their portion of what they do to people, right? And so it's like, so y'all mad at Putin, and then y'all putting these little sanctions on him, but it's like, you're not really saying why. You know what I mean? Not really saying why. And the other thing is, as Putin said, y'all wasn't addressing my concerns that Ukraine decided to, go in with NATO, and that was a concern for them. So it's like, now that I've gotten froggy and I bleep, now everybody's calling me a bully, but he's like, well, who really is the bully here? And to be speaking of China, mm-hmm. China's like, he asked China, to help him with drones and different things. Yeah. And China's like, well, we want to help, but we don't want sanctions too. So I don't know if they're going to get involved. But
isn't that funny? And when everything comes down to it, it comes down to the money. It comes down to the money.
Absolutely.
Money. But it's just amazing. And then our Black bootlick politicians, you don't hear them talking about the Haitians anymore and the disparity that is going on with our immigration policies. You don't see them talking about that. But you look at the Hispanic caucus, they're constantly speaking up for their people's immigration policies, the Native Americans and all this other stuff. And people say, Native Americans, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Native Americans are Americans. Well, yes, but they have standing treaties with the United States. So they have basically what is called an open border policy because they are native here, but they are their own people. So they are kind of like being their own nation. So it's kind of like you got to treat them as if like they're from Mexico or some other country. So, but they just have an open border with us. So, I'm just concerned as we continue to fail. You heard the Black politicians say a few things, then you heard nothing of it. And then we've got the Brittany Griner situation. Sheila Jackson Lee came out and said a few things that made her look popular for a second, and now you don't hear nothing about it. These politicians have the bully pulpit of the national press. That's why in 1966, the Supreme Court ruled that a elected official can't sue its constituents, because if I came out and I said something that was a total lie against that representative, they have the power to utilize the press to refute everything I'm saying. So this is why some of these things are going. But this goes to show you that we have no friends out here. I mean, isn't it funny that the people that are pseudo friends, and I'm saying pseudo, our pseudo friends will speak up for us, but the very people that look like us will not say a word that will tip the apple cart, per se.
Absolutely. And also should be said too, just kind of giving a little bit more history, that the Clinton administration offered Ukraine a lot of money to help dismantle their nuclear weapons. So it was more than just saying, hey guys, just get rid of the weapons.
Right.
They actually paid them, like I think it was 175 million plus to help get rid of the nuclear weapons. They also, through NATO, were promised that they would have protection by Russia, Britain, and the United States. And so now that the protection is needed, the United States is like, well, we're going to do some, sanctions, but we ain't going to run in there, because they know that Putin is with the stuff. Like, I'm not saying it's right what he's doing to Ukrainian people. I'm not saying that. So please don't mistake me in that. But this man and, his army or whatever, they have gone over to Ukraine and it just leveled the place, killing all kind of people. And all the nations, have you seen Britain running there at all? Have you seen the United States running there? Those are the people who were supposed to be giving, and Russia was like, well, we lied. We actually are the reason you need the protection. But you don't see those people who promised them that we're going to come in and help. And they're just like, well, we're going to do these sanctions and all this other stuff, but we're not going to bring people to help you. And so people need to really understand what is going on here, because we as Americans, we keep falling into the narratives that they write for us, that these other countries are bad and this, that, and the others going on, but they always leave out their part in why things are the way they are around the world. And the United States is notorious for destabilizing governments. That's what they do. And you ask yourself, why are they destabilizing government? Is it because they're bored and they're just bullies on the playground? No, there is something there. Like you said, there's uranium, from what I understand, in Ukraine, and different other the resources around the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources in Ukraine.
Yeah, a lot around the world that they seize. So be mindful, do your research. Be mindful.
Yeah, I mean, what was one of the first things? See, I know people do not like Trump because he's so disrespectful, but the idiot is honest. He said, go into Libya, just take the oil. He's letting you know what the policy is. We're going in there just to take it. We're not going to pay you for it. We're not going to go into no mega deal to where you benefit from. We're going to go in there and take it. And here's the crazy thing, Demetra. Isn't what Putin, if you agree with him or if you don't agree with him, isn't he using the same playbook that the United States used to invade Iraq, who had nothing to do with 9/11?
Yeah,
it's the same playbook. Oh, well, you're brutalizing innocent Russians and stuff, and we're going to go in there. Oh, Saddam has weapons of mass destruction, and he killed all his own people, the Kurds, and we're going to go in there and set him up. How the hell can we? And we were over there for 20 years bombing the crap and murdering all of these people, and nobody's been brought to justice, by the way, even though the World Court has asked Condoleezza Rice, Dick Cheney, all of these people are wanted criminals. And now here we are trying to tell another nation that is using the exact same playbook that we used how to conduct themselves in a moral and modern, civilized manner of war. Isn't that crazy?
And the other thing too with NATO, I mean, they signed on to that. They signed on to the
wait, and not just NATO. Look at the European Union, which is separate from NATO. There's a European Union military force as well, and they're supposed to keep the peace in Europe.
Right. So they signed on to the agreement between, Russia, Britain, and the United States. They said, oh, it's a good thing or whatever. And, just the mere fact that Putin, or one of the mere facts, I guess, that Putin thought that Zelensky and the Ukrainians were going to, we got a little feedback there.
Got it.
That they were going to form an alliance with NATO, set him off, in addition to, him saying that they got some Nazism going on over there. So, and we kind of seen that materialize a little bit as well.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't understand. Putin has been saying for years, the problem is when Poland joined the NATO, that was a problem for Russia because now you've got a NATO force on their border. And that was his biggest thing. Russia does not want NATO favored countries on the border. And he's been saying that for years and years and years. And now Ukraine has wanted to join NATO. And right now, I think Biden said that, maybe in the future, the U.S. policies maybe in the future, we'll see what happens down the road. But they have applied for membership into NATO, which is another reason. And I don't know why the news doesn't let the American people know that. Scratch Putin's ass to make him get froggy and say, oh, well, that was one of the biggest things that they wanted to be into the NATO circle of countries. And he wasn't having it.
Absolutely. And so some of y'all might be wondering why I have this hand behind me. It's a hand of a
Why do you have that hand? Why do you?
Well, I have that hand is because what about us? What about us as Black people? And I know that the United States helping Ukraine with all the stuff, and actually giving them water and things. It's like, wait a minute now. Don't we got cities here in America that have horrible water sources? I mean, I know that we do, right? But you're making sure that people over there have, good drinking water and potable water is what they call it, that you can use.
Can I clarify? Most of your bad water is usually where Black people or poor people live. So
yeah,
it doesn't really affect, the white folks and stuff. So
right. So this hand is, to ask the question, what about us as Black people, right? Again, especially with this administration, we as Black people are the reason that they are in office. When I say they, I mean Biden, Kamala, and everybody else are in office. And we continuously get nothing at all. Nothing, when I say nothing specifically for Black people. They tell us what they can and cannot do for Black people. They have this lift every voice plan that's supposed to be for Black people, but it doesn't even really mention Black people much at all. And when we talk about Black people, we're talking about specifically, right? We want reparations. We want criminal justice reform. We want qualified immunity to end for police officers who murder Black people wholesale. We want better education. We want gentrification to stop, redlining. We want all of that stuff, right? We want to have
really concepts that really don't cost a lot of money, other than the reparations. All this, the other stuff that you just named, it's just a matter of them. They have the legislation to do it, to pass it. There's a lot of money to do these different things. See, and I think the biggest problem is if it costs money for us, they don't want to do it. And that's why reparations is a big thing. They don't want to do it, but they can do the George Floyd bill.
It is not that if it costs money for us, they don't, because see, for them being the powers that be right now as white people to say, well, we're going to give you reparations, then they have to admit that they come from a horrible ancestry gene pool themselves, right? Also, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, that if the master gives you equality, then he is no longer seen as the master. So the master is not going to give the slave per se equal rights or any equal footing at all. And so they know too, giving us money is going to close that wealth gap. It's going to close us being dependent on everything here in America. And that is specifically toward, to me, the Democrats, because we know Republicans don't want us to have it to some degree. They just don't, right? We're not surprised by that. But what is the Democrats' reason? Why don't the Democrats loudly profess we need Black people to get reparations so that they can close the wealth gap, so that they can have equal this, that, and the other? You know why? Because it's a game in Washington between the Republicans and the Democrats. Democrats need
ping pong.
They need that stronghold over the Republicans, and that stronghold is us. We help them keep that, right?
Strong voter base, that guaranteed voter base.
Us dependent on them for all these programs, things like that. So reparations is not something they're interested in, because they know that most Black people, we get it. I don't know about most, but a lot of us that get it, will say, thank you. Politics, we don't care about it. Because really the only reason why Black people are in politics is because we're lied to often about, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. But if we had our own money and everything else, we wouldn't really even care about politics. Just like the Asian community, they care about it, but they don't need a Republican or a Democrat to do anything for them because they are a self-governing community. They have their own money, they have their own business,
culture,
they have
their own thing. Yeah,
they have a whole bunch of stuff that they're not dependent upon politicians for. So it's not that, you know, to me, it's not even really about money. It's about control. We want to keep that proverbial carrot dangling in front of Black people always, right? So to me, it's not about we don't have the money. It's about control. We want to be able to control them.
Right, but what is it going to cost them to do that? We're talking trillions of dollars in reparations.
They're giving trillions of dollars away every year.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's my point. When it comes to Black people, it can't be done, but you're giving all this money out like candy. And then what Biden didn't want to do through the Congress, he's doing by executive order. But when it comes to specific things for Black people, a good example, what's it going to cost for him to write an executive order on this police commission, presidential police commission that he talked about on the campaign trail? That doesn't cost any money. It's a law. He could do it. Doesn't want to do it. But see, this is where I see the difference in the Democratic Party. Wasn't most of your Klan members Democrats?
Oh yeah, hell shit was.
Right. The civil rights movement. Who fought against the civil rights fighters more so than any other party? Democrats.
Absolutely.
Democrats. So if you look at the structure, and I'm just thinking out loud, if the KKK and racist white groups basically are formed from the Democratic Party and they have Democratic ideology, they fought for the South and they believe the South is going to rise again and all that stupid stuff that they believe in. They have a structure where they say, well, we can't enslave them anymore, literally, but we can enslave them economically. And that's what I see the Democratic Party doing. Like you said, dangling that carrot and keeping us in a form of servitude and at a level to where we can't do, most of us can't do for ourselves. And a good example on your Sunday show, there are people, and not just your Sunday show, but other shows we do. There are people that will big up the Democrats because they give them stuff. But remember, if you're going to be in Section 8 housing, you have to make a certain amount of income. And everybody knows somebody who refuses to make more money or do better for themselves because if they did, they would lose their stipend of their housing or their food stamps or whatever. This is being done by the Democratic Party, not the Republicans.
So no, absolutely. So I mean, and so it's not an issue of them not having the money. We see they have the money. It's really about control. And the thing is, we continue to vote for them. I mean, I don't know how many slaps in the faces that this administration especially has to give to not just the American people, but shit, Black people. How many slaps in the faces do we actually need before we say, okay, now I get it? You know, and one thing I would say too is I am noticing that there are a few more Black people waking up, although there are still a lot who are holding on to the Democratic plantation like nobody's business, right? They're still defending them, but I'm to the point to where I don't even talk to those people anymore. Like, get behind me, devil. Never talk to me again. Like, I'm not going to continue to talk to you and, you know, have these conversations with you because you know better at this point. But yeah, you still want to believe that, you know, old Master Joe is going to do something for you. And even if he doesn't, why does he have to do something specifically? He's not the president of these Black people. He's the president of it. It's the same argument we heard with, you know, Barack Obama and everybody else, right? And so when you, as a Black person, continue to defend Biden, and you watch him say out of his own tweets, you know, that we are going to welcome them with open arms. Hell, they don't welcome you with open arms. They don't welcome you. Matter of fact, he stood at his press conference, was it a week or so ago, at the State of the Union, whatever it was, and he said, I'm going to fashion a committee to go after people who was defrauding the PPP loans. It's like, okay, I get it. People out there probably doing things they shouldn't have been doing with that, but is that where your focus is, to get more American people in trouble as you go out and help other countries? Is that really what's most important when y'all are making all these trillions of dollars to give away and stuff, but yet you want to go after people who didn't even take nowhere near $1 trillion? Like, make it make sense.
Right. And then that PP loan thing, Donald Trump took the PP loan. All these corporations took the PP loan. I don't see him going after them. He always goes after the low level people to do, and like I said, maybe they did the wrong thing. But, if the advantage was there and they didn't have the oversight, why are you giving out tax dollars and you don't have the mechanism in place to make sure that they don't get abused and taken advantage of? Yeah, I'm not making excuses for those people. I'm just saying.
Nobody's making excuses for them, but it's more or less like, is that where your level of importance is now with all that's going on in the world? You still got people, when they took that child tax credit away, they said it instantly plummeted families back into poverty. It said it was helping families come out of poverty, but you took that away. Also, unemployment ended. So there's a whole bunch of
student loan forbearance thing ended.
Yeah, so there's a whole lot of, things that were helping people during this, pandemic and things like that. And, that was snatched away. But you guys also got to remember that the labor market is bountiful, right? We got all these jobs out there. And so what they tell us, right? But my daughter says that she was on the internet a couple of days ago and she's seeing a lot of people saying, I've been applying for jobs. And she knows people, I've been applying for jobs. I haven't heard back from them. So it's like, what's really going on here? Do you guys need people or is this a ruse, right? But anyway, so it's like you got they got all these jobs and stuff. And so what they're trying to do is, in my opinion, I was actually having a conversation with my younger brother, is that they are trying to starve people back into going to these low-level jobs. Now, when I say low-level, I'm talking about minimum wage and a little bit above, because you guys got to remember, especially Joe Biden and them, they are corporatists. And so they got all these friends with these corporations and these businesses, and they're probably sitting at dinner. Oh, man, I don't have nobody to work. My company is doing bad. I got, we have what we need except for people to work. And we got these lines and this, that, and the other. So they're probably saying, hey, is there something you can do? Like, you can take away this unemployment, take away these child tax credits. And
exactly.
If they need to get out there and work 2 or 3 jobs, then so be it. But the other thing y'all got to remember is working 2 or 3 jobs is not normal, and nor is it healthy. But guess what? When the machine, the one that owns the means of production, is rolling, it will not stop. It will grind you up and spit you out. It does not care. It wants to continue making money, even at the expense of people.
And does anybody notice the biggest corporation in the United States, Walmart? You guys know that during the pandemic, did anybody notice during the pandemic that their self-checkout got bigger and bigger and bigger?
Oh, yeah.
They have less cashiers. I mean, you have all these lines, but maybe 2 cashiers that actually have people there, but the self-checkout got bigger. And because during the pandemic, nobody was going to work, I guess nobody was in a rush. So then you got used to doing it. And so whenever I go into these stores and I see this going on, I'm just like, wow, they have now perfected, and the pandemic helped it, to make people's mind accept the fact that you have just now automated your grocery experience and you have no problem with it. And so that saves the corporations millions of dollars.
And so there's a little bit more science to it than that. I mean, you got to think about it from a corporation point of view. When you're dealing with humans, right? Humans are going to be humans. Humans are going to get sick. Humans are going to call off. Humans are going to want to go on vacation.
Absolutely.
Humans are going to get pregnant. Humans are going to do a lot of things humans do. And so they're going to need time off. And it costs the company money when people don't show up to work because they have a labor. So there's a lot going on with that. And so what they began to do is to automate their businesses and say, hey, how do we get rid of all of those human issues, right? Let's get machines in there. Machines are going to be there. They're going to work around the clock. They're not going to complain. They're going to want a lunch break. They're not going to want anything but just the work. And so we need to figure out how to avoid the human aspect of it, even though we need humans to come in there and spend money. But we want to get rid of the human aspect of it from the other side of the counter. And a perfect example of that, too, is if you've gone into the bank, within the last couple of years, and I use Chase for an example. You go into Chase. Before, they used to have a whole bunch of tellers. Now they got 1, maybe 2 if it's busy. And then in that branch, they've closed, like literally boxed off and boarded up where the other windows used to be, because they don't want you to go in there and say, Well, you have all these windows. Where's all the people? They need to open up some more windows. They don't want you to subconsciously think that. So they boarded the windows up and they put all these machines out there that will help you do just about anything besides open up an account and some other things, but you could do almost anything else you need to with those machines. And so most people who are older, still kind of acclimating to the machine aspect, when you go there on the first or wherever people get their money, see these long lines and people are having to endure that. But eventually they're going to start saying, okay, well, let me figure out this machine because I don't want to continue waiting in these long lines. So it's a science to it.
You know, but you're seeing it everywhere. McDonald's. I saw a Church's Chicken trying it. I don't know why, but you know, it's Church's Chicken. But let me
ask you why.
Yeah, well, I know why, but so the other day I saw Al Sharpton, and he was summoned to the White House because they're saying that the Democrats are seeing gloom and doom come this fall in the midterms, and they summoned Al Sharpton and all the other bootlick black folks because now Biden is now, even though he's trying to move to the middle to appeal to those Republican conservative white voters and those blue Democrats, a political pundit is basically probably telling him that's not going to be enough. If you lose a certain amount of black voters, it's not going to look good because he's looking at 2024. So what is your take on these black bootlicks that still harp for this Democratic thing? Because things are starting to change, like you said, as people are waking up. Well, what is your take on the midterms? And what do you think is the strategy that what could he possibly say to black people in a re-election?
Well, I don't even know if to say fortunate or unfortunate part about that is there's a lot of black people who still listen to Al Sharpton. If you dress something up really nice, you're more than likely to be, tuned into it. And so Al will give a rebel rousing speech as to why and democracy is in danger and all this other stuff. But the other part about it is they get money. I just did a report on the African National News Channel. It's not up yet, I don't think, where it said that the Health and Human Services Department gave like $60-something million to different TV stations, radio stations, and YouTube channels, if you will. And the Breakfast Club was one of them. They got money to advertise the pandemic and the COVID and the vaccines and stuff. And so I say all that to say is that they're giving that kind of money out and this was to disseminate messages to the black community. It said that the white media outlets got more of the money. So white media outlets that cater to black audiences, they got more of the money than black outlets that cater to black people. So I say that to say that there's money given to certain people and entities to go out there and reach black people. And so let's say Al Sharpton is one of them. I don't know for sure, but he probably is, right? That's getting some sort of
his Action Network, which doesn't really exist, but it exists.
So he's getting let's just say he's getting some sort of a kickback. So of course he's going to go out there and spew the talking points of the person who was writing the check. Hey, y'all, don't let these Republicans, they bad people. Don't let them take over. If they take over, you're going to be back on the plantation.
Don't listen to this new black media Negro. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, so they bring Al Sharpton as that guy in the black community to go and sell black people on why. I'm telling y'all, we didn't even talk about this before. We got, when 2024 comes, we got to make sure Trump don't get back in office. Now that the midterm elections coming out, we can't let the Congress turn red. We got to keep it because they're going to get rid of all these rights and this, that, and the other. But as black people in America, ask yourself this: what rights do you have now? Are the Republicans going to take away anything you don't already have? And if you have it, are they going to take away anything that you use correctly? You ain't going into those voting booths and making the right choice for your people. You're going in there and making the right choices for everybody else, even to the tune of the Congressional Black Caucus. They go in there, they get your votes, and they go and they advocate for everybody else. And so ask yourself, when you hear Al Sharpton or any of these other people, that the usual suspects, come tiptoeing around during election season and they tell you your democracy is in danger, ask them, well, what democracy do I have as a Black person anyway? Ask them that. And if they're not able to, even if it's Al Sharpton or anybody, your neighbor, your pastor, somebody come with that bullshit, ask them, well, what democracy do I have now? And if they can't answer that, they don't know. It's a shell of a talking point that they give to people, and forgive me when I say this, that are ignorant and won't research or just ask basic questions, period.
Right now, the Democrats control all three forms of government. All three forms of Democrat Party is doing that. Did you hear that the Congressional Black Talkers, and especially in the woman caucus within that caucus, has formed a group that is going to fight for Sister Girl going to the Supreme Court to counter the Republican, whatever their talking points is, to not nominate her, which is another form of symbolism in regards to that. So let me get this straight, Demetra. If the Congressional Black Talkers and Sheila Jackson Lee and the Black women who are the backbone of the Democratic Party supposedly are smart enough to form a group to circumvent talking points of the opposition to make sure that this woman gets confirmation, why can't they do that when it comes to specific issues that deal with Black people?
Because they are gatekeepers. Those people get the job, and you ask yourself, what are they gatekeeping? They are gatekeeping the status quo for white supremacy. They often hire and elect and promote and appoint Black people to help them keep the other Negroes in check. We talked about this before on here. Y'all can research it. The Big Six back in the day, Martin Luther King, John Lewis, I think Ralph Abernathy, and a couple other people that make up 6 people were paid by $1.3 million. This is 1963, I believe it was. 1963, $1.3 million collectively to go back to their communities and tell them, we're going to do a little something, but we're not going to turn up. Because as Malcolm X described it, he says that Black people were pissed, what was going on in the country right before the whole civil rights thing really kicked off. And they were going to disrupt things like lay on LaGuardia Airport tarmac and not allow planes to land and things like that. So Kennedy was like, listen, you, the 6 prominent Negroes, go back to your respective organization or churches or whatever it is and tell them, yeah, we'll do a little sit-in here and there. We'll march up the street, but don't do nothing too froggy, because at the end of the day, if Black people turn up, then it's going to disrupt the normalcy of white people and white money, and we don't want that. And so that's why it's important for them to get these little talking points and these strategy meetings together and try to get her appointed, because as we've looked at her record, we've already seen that she's probably not as progressive and helpful for Black people as we thought. She is the police union's girl. They love her. Now ask yourself, anytime that the police union backs anybody Black, especially a Black woman, why? And it's usually because that particular person is pro-police. So imagine if something goes to the Supreme Court that needs to have a ruling on in regards to police brutality or something. How do you think she's going to lead?
And it's been case law that a corporation, Lockheed Martin, discriminated against a group of Black employees, and they actually won the case because Lockheed Martin wanted to settle with them, and she nixed the deal.
Yes, she screwed them out of $55 million.
Yeah. And, Kamala Harris, I'm the top cop in California. She even had her little badge and stuff like that. Val Demings, a former police chief. All these people, and ladies, I'm sorry. I know you guys want to, pat yourselves on the back and stuff. I would be embarrassed to be running around here talking about Black women are the backbone of the Democratic Party, and yet your sons are being shot down and incarcerated in prisons, and these people are doing nothing about it.
Well, yeah, and so they should not be saying that the backbone of the Democratic Party without dragging the Black man with them. Because again, the Black man wasn't that far behind Black women in voting for the Democrats. So Black people as a whole are complicit in helping Black people get nothing. Now, I get why they call Black women the backbone of the Democratic Party, because Black women, for one, they vote a little bit more for the Democratic Party than they do Republicans, but they are so outspoken. And also, it comes from that of slavery, of big up in the Black woman and pushing the Black man down. And so it's just more of that lingo to say, it's the Black woman that's responsible for this. It's the Black woman that's responsible for this. And the Black man, y'all need to get it together. Y'all over there with Trump. But it's like they ain't over there with Trump as much as they are purporting that Black men are. But it's a subliminal beatdown of the Black man to say, well, if it wasn't for Black women, shoot, we wouldn't be nowhere in this country. But it's like, to your point, well, if you're the backbone of the Democratic Party, Black woman, what are you bringing any bacon home for Black people? Because that's what white women do when they go vote for somebody. That's what Hispanics do, or anybody else when they vote for somebody. They bring the bacon home for their community, but Black women cannot continue to talk about, I'm the backbone of the Democratic Party, and you got your people at home starving. You're out there and you're no better. Forgive this. Don't get mad. Get mad if you want. You're no better than a prostitute walking the boulevard and getting nothing to show for it. Period.
Absolutely. Because, and I like the way, and this ain't about, these are just facts. Hillary Clinton ran for presidency. Why didn't she win? Because white women refused to vote for her. They didn't go with the sister girl thing and stuff like that. They knew that this woman had a problem. She had issues in her background, all sorts of stuff. But yet here we are. We see the disparity going on within the community of Black people. They couldn't even pass a George Floyd bill. All these Black women in Congress, and they haven't said a word. Nancy Pelosi the bill is dead. She's not going to bring it up. But yet, these people go lockstep and have access to Nancy Pelosi and putting no pressure. What would be more beneficial to Black people than to pass a qualified immunity bill, which was also, by the way, when they were negotiating that, it was led by Black women. And what did they say when they get Karen Bass? When it couldn't get done, we tried.
Yeah, and I mean, in a Black man, James Clyburn, he says, well, I'm willing to take him a qualified immunity, getting rid of it off the table to pass the infrastructure bill. We'll come back to that. And to your point, they haven't come back to it. They're not going to come back to it. Now, James Clyburn is the number 3 Democrat, or, in the House or whatever. And he's the one that delivered the presidency to Biden. But yet here he is, talking about, well, getting rid of qualified immunity is not that big of a deal, but you didn't help everybody else get something. Getting rid of qualified immunity specifically helps Black people, because Black people are disproportionately murdered wholesale by police officers, and they get away with it. And so when you say
incarcerated, look how many Black men are being exonerated from prison. And in some states and municipalities, they don't get those years back, and they can only get a certain amount of money. I read one article where the guy was incarcerated for 12 years unjustly. He can't sue the prosecutor who put him in there, even though the prosecutor had the evidence. The city only gave this man $16,000 for 12 years of his life.
Well, so again, those are the things that need to be thought about when you're going to the polls. And so, I hear people talk about, they're trying to take away voters' rights and this, that, and the other. Like, you don't do the right thing with the damn votes anyway. So why do you care? I really get frustrated when I hear that talking point going forward. Now, I'm not saying we don't need voters' rights, but if you get voters' rights as Black people, you're going to continue to go vote for oppression. So what is really the difference? And let me finish. Nobody's ever really able to answer that. You go, I gotta say, today, they give you voters' rights. Okay, you're gonna have the right to go uninhibited. You're not gonna have to take all these tests and bring all these licenses and all this other stuff that they're asking, right? They give you voters' rights. You go in there. What are you gonna do with it? You're gonna do the same damn thing. You're gonna vote for the same Democrats who won't just go hard and fast in the paint and say, we are not going to make anything else move until Black people have the right to vote. And this is not voted upon every 25 years. We're going to make sure that Black people are a protected class of citizens in this country. You guys don't go and vote for that. You guys go and vote for, well, they tried, and they said they would, y'all don't go vote for anything progressive. I had a conversation with a Black woman online the other night. She says, well, you know, the Democrats, they do have a progressive part of the party. I said, that's another way of saying Democrat. I said, you could call them a progressive if you want, but they're still a Democrat. I said, no, you talk about your AOCs and your Ilhan Omars and all these, people up in there. I said, but what happened? They went in there with a big old, we're going to do this. We're going to change the system. And they ain't said shit since.
Haven't done a damn thing. A matter of fact, against Joe Manchin, they were like, well, he promised he's going to do this. And what did Joe Manchin do? Gave him the big finger and blocked everything. But speaking of the voting rights bill, because that's why I kind of want to interrupt you, because I wanted you were going in the right area. Is that a farce? Because don't you need ID to drive a car? Don't you need ID to get social benefits?
So, I mean, I get all of that. I get it. I don't think the ID thing to me is a big of a deal. But the point that I was making is people are whining and complaining about the civil rights. But it's like, do you realize the votes that you continue to make is the reason why you don't have civil rights? Because you're not, or voters' rights rather, because you're not putting anybody in there that's really going to go and do what they say they're going to do, right? You keep voting for your Auntie Maxines and your Sheila Jackson Lees and your Jim Clyburns and all these older people. I want to call them old, but older people who have held that office for so many years and have done nothing specifically for Black people. You keep listening to your Al Sharptons and all these other talking heads that keep telling you to keep voting for oppression. And then you whine about we don't have voters' rights. They trying to put us on the plantation. Well, who do you think are going to be the head Negroes on the plantation? It's the same people you listening to.
Right, exactly. But, again, there are a lot of older people that are waking up. I mean, I talk to them all the time. They didn't know this, they didn't know that. One of the things that I always say is the most dangerous thing to a democracy is an uneducated electorate. Everybody's got smartphones. It just takes a couple of seconds to Google your information. I have a podcast called Black Politicians Ain't Shit. And what I do on this, I go and I look at their congressional record, and you will find I don't care what Black politician you pick in the modern day that is in Congress right now. I will guarantee you they do not have any legislation specific to Black people, but they have Dreamers, they have the Asian crime bill, they have the Indian casino people, the Ukrainians. Look at their voting thing, but nothing specific to Black people, but symbolism.
Yep. And so we got about 2 minutes before we get out of here. And I just want to say this, Black people, don't come to me no more saying nothing else about Trump. Okay. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that Trump is a good dude. Trump's got his issues. Yes, he does. But don't you fix your black mouth to say nothing to me about Trump until you start talking about Biden. When y'all can talk about them in the same conversation as being the lesser of two evils. Remember, we was all having that conversation during the election season. Oh, well, the lesser of two evils. I got to vote for the lesser of two evils. And we asked you to put some mathematics, some history to your vote and ask yourself then, who really is the lesser of two evils? And if you did not unequivocally come up with Joe Biden, then you didn't do your due diligence. And so now you're seeing with a year and so into his presidency, Biden's presidency, he has continued to thumb his nose at you as Black people and has not even been apologetic about it at all. And so don't bring up Trump until you start talking about Biden. That's all I got to say.
There it is. And I'm in total agreement. So again, you guys, thank you guys for joining us. Do not forget to check out Demetra K on Sundays. 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We talk about all kinds of topics and things of that. But the thing about that show is you are the co-host, and Demetra reads every comment, and we are one of the few shows that actually do that because what you say also matters in the conversation. So, Demetra?
Absolutely, y'all. So we love and appreciate you if you made it this far. And again, we have a Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. If you want to help donate to this channel and keeping Black media, bringing you the news you can use. Also, we are on iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spreaker, Spotify, and a couple other outlets. We'll get those all up for you if you want to listen to them. But anyway, we'll see you guys Saturday for a Saturday podcast. Peace.